Hello, I'm Mike and welcome to the workshop. Well, summer is in full swing now and people want to be out in their gardens. So, this week I'm going to show you how to make this gardener's tote just using hand tools. So, let's grab our cheapest toolkit in the West and roll the intro! Actually, it's a new intro. Enjoy. So, this is the design, and I actually have the CAD for this one, so if anyone's interested in making it, drop me a comment. I'll send it on to you free, gratis, and for nothing. So, it's basically just a box, but the sides of this box are tilted about 15 degrees, and this is kind of a very common design with these kind of things, older style tool totes. I'm going to make it just out of this, which is 4x1 planed all sides. You can get this in any hardware store, and I also happen to have some of this roofing or ceiling sheeting. It's been beating around for a while. I'm going to use that to make my bottom, but you can just use 4x1 for all of this. You're going to need less than a length for this. And because there's so many angles here, we're officially adding this to the cheapest toolkit in the West. The bevel square, you can pick these up for next to nothing, 5 or 6 quid. But they're going to come in very handy here. And you're also then going to need one of these, a protractor that'll help us get our angles. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut our sides. Our sides are the full length, so I know that my widest point is going to be 400. That's 75, so 75 to 90 means 15. So I'll set 15 degrees on this, and then we'll cut our two sides. Now, in case you don't know, I'll just show you very quickly how to get an angle with a protractor. So, just score a straight line. That's going to be your start point. You take a protractor, it always has a little hole. You line it up with the crosshairs. Everything nice and lined up. And then you mark it off here. We know 75 is what we want. Then we can draw a line from there to there. I was going off this side because that's where I squared it off. So I've already set this slightly off. So you bring off a protractor then, lining up that line along the bottom, or not, sorry, our sliding bevel. You tighten it. Make sure everything is square, and we don't change that for the whole project, so even if we get this wrong, all our angles will be right. So let's mark some ends and start cutting. So when I'm cutting angle pieces like this, what I like to do is cut one side and then I can measure down, cut the other side. This gives me a little bit of freedom for things to go wrong. So what we're going to do is, when we have this one cut, we'll mark this off that one, so those two pieces will be the same. The exact same principle here for doing the ends. So we just cut one end, then cut the other angle. But the great thing about the end pieces is that they're in fact the reverse of one another. So once I have the cut made in the center, all I need to do is flip the piece over and mark it. So I only have to make 3 cuts to get the 2 sides out of this one. Now, technically, our sides are what's known as a compound angle, which means that not only is the cut in an angle this way along the face, it's also an angle going down across. So I'll exaggerate. Let's say that's our compound angle there. So we'll be doing a cut along that face at that scope, and then along the edge at that angle. Now this has been the bane of existence for makers for generations. For this, what I'm making here, and eventually we will go into more in depth about how to cut compound angles and work them out. The best thing to do is do what I've done, cut them square, and then we're going to come along with our bevel square at an angle of 7.5 degrees. It's half of the angle of the side, and we'll mark that here. Make sure to mark our inside, so our inside is going to be our widest point in this case, and we'll just plane down the outside corner, and that'll make sure we have a nice tight fit. You could put this together just as a square, but you would end up with little gaps in the corner and it wouldn't look as nice. And when we're done, we'll end up with something like this. Now this is massively exaggerated, but the key thing to remember is our widest point is going to be the inside, so these angles you're going to mark and plane off need to be facing towards your outside and facing this way, going down towards a point, not parallel. Now this is very little, so theoretically you could do it without marking. All you need to do is just take the edges off the inside, a couple of passes, and this will probably be okay. But that's a quick introduction to compound angles. So now let's get ready to assemble. Now we have the bulk of this cut out and assembled. So I've showed this in videos before, so we're going to assemble these like this, and there will be a little bit here, a little bit there that we'll have to touch the plane to get it flush. So I'm just going to pick the side I want to piece out. I want to put the end up against it here, score a light on, heavier than that. That tells us where the width of this is, and we're going to put in 2 screws about halfway in there using our plug system that we used in other videos. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to drill my pilot holes. Now as I've said with this before, if you run the drill just a few times in reverse, you'll cut those fibres and that'll give you a much cleaner seat here on the top. We only need to go in 5 or 6 mil, enough for our plug to be able to seat. So we'll then grab our bit that'll create our true hole for the screw, and just a bit of scrap for backing, drill the whole way through. Now of course you can do this with a hand drill as well. This is a little bit quicker. So now we're going to put this together, and I'm gluing all the surfaces that are meeting here. One thing I want to make sure is that you're using a glue that's rated for indoor and outdoor use, because this being for the garden, chances are it's going to get wet and muddy, and want to make sure that glue holds for as long as possible so we get the most longevity out of it. I tend to put glue on both surfaces. Make sure there's good coverage. And here I'm just putting a brush stroke because I know brush stroke is less and thickness of my material. Because these are meeting at a weird angle, it will require a little bit of persuasion and tricky gluing together. Although not vital, it is very handy to have a vise for these kind of tricky glue ups, because you can line everything up much easier when one piece is held solidly. Shaped object. So the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to knock off here where the edges stick up, because they're not angled in place, and then we'll look at making the little support strips for our bottoms. So quickly here, what I want to do is on the top here I'm going to bring down my ends so that the angle matches the splay on the two sides, so we have that consistent kind of 15-degree angle all the way around. And then on the bottom, all we're doing is just knocking it down so it's flat, so it'll sit flat on the table or the ground or whatever you're working on. So to make our little support patterns, all you need is a piece of scrap. Now I happen to have this long piece of scrap. What you can do is get a piece of 4" and do what I'm showing you on both sides and split it down the middle. We just need to match that 15-degree angle. So I have the assembled top here, and we want to match the angle of this. So we're just going to come in like that, set it, holding it tight, then tightening it. The idea then being that that is the angle we're going to base this on. We have the angle of our side, so I'll take our square, line this up, mark that, and then transfer that line down. I'm using a thumb gauge, but you could mark the other end and just draw a straight line. This is not vitally important, but I think you'll find when I go to this edge, it'll probably be pretty much up bang on anyway. Yep. Skill you need to learn. So now all we're going to do is with those two angles, we're going to work our way down. Now as I said, you could do a shorter length and just split it up the middle when you have it done. Do both sides of it. The idea being that once we have this angle cut, we can cut these into smaller pieces, pin them around the perimeter at the bottom, and that'll give us a shelf to put our bottom on. So this will take a little while. As I say, I always recommend getting in practice sharp or cleaning whenever you can. So I'm going to enjoy this. So now that we have these out, I've cut them to length. Now these don't need to run the whole length. I just, there's no point getting under the slip there. There'll be more than enough support. So what you want to do is put your wide piece against the angle. Maybe not point stuff out while you're gluing your hand, but I'll wipe it off. And I have this sitting flat because I want these to be flat when it's down. I'm just going to attach them with glue and a few panel bits. That's that done. Now we just need to measure for our slats. So, get my tape in there, so I know that my thinnest part of it is going to be 322. So I'll cut my slat, and on my first slat here I'm going to put an angle of 15 degrees on this side so it fits in. I'll show you that there now. So here we have this. Now this first one might take you a while to get right, but your base is the length of the rest of them. This is the same whether you're using this GG&V stuff that I have, or whether you're using a bit of the 4x1 plane. So I have my two angles this way, and then I have one angle that matches, sorry, then I have an angle on this side that matches this. And that goes in. You see there that fits pretty tight, means everything is nice and square. So I'll mark my second one off this. It just so happens that I only need two here. So the first thing I'll do is I'll cut this to length, because we need to do the exact same here. We need to put an angle on it so it sits flush here, and I'll just slowly mark that to width, and then I'll slowly plane it until the two of these fit perfectly into place. So that's a pretty nice fit, gives it a little bit of room for expansion. Same thing here, I'm just going to put these down with panel beans into those slips that we just put in. Now, that's the safest houses. It's time to move on to our handle. So if we go back to our original sketch, you can see that the handle continues up and above this height. That requires it to be a bit thicker. So off camera I've just glued up these two pieces of 4x1 to create that height. And I've created this to make our template. So the first thing I need to do here is I need to get my interior measurement in here. So I've done that quickly, but I don't know if I've explained it. There are a few ways you can do it, right? The normal way is to just drop your tape in there and guesstimate. But all tapes have a little piece of information here. In this case it says plus 72 mil. And what that means is that there's 72 mil from the back of this to the front of the tape. So you can put your tape in, push it the whole way back, lock in your tape, then take the measurement that you see there. In this case it's 258 and add 72, and that should be your internal dimension. So I'm going to take this here, I'm going to mark the center line, and I'm going to put half of that either side. Then with my 15 degree angle that I have from my sides, I'm going to score up like that, cut off these sides, make sure we get a nice fit in here, and then we can create a cardboard template to make this scoop. So I've bonded my template here onto a piece of card. I've also got myself tea, both of which are vital. I have my marks here where the depth of this is, and just using that center line I'm going to line it up and mark around my template. And here where I have the handle, I've actually stopped it, so I get a nice accurate width of the handle. We'll just join those two lines and we're done. Just fold it over, same on the other side, and keeping it straight to my center line, lining it up. Score around. Join those two lines. I cut out that shape with the jigsaw. You'll notice here that I drilled holes in the corners where the handle cutout is. This is the easiest way to do an internal cut with a jigsaw. It also gives you a nice rounded corner. Now, with our handle, I'm going to make sure it's comfortable. So what I'm going to do is take my plane here. I'm going to round over flat surface. And I'm just going to round over the top here so that where our hand is grabbing it, it's comfortable. We don't have any sharp edges. All of these things you can do by hand, so if you feel it and it feels wrong, take a bit more out. This work look is comfy. That feels pretty good. And we're going to do the same then. Here we're going to grab a long chisel and we're just going to pare away at the inside here and smooth this out with sandpaper when we're sanding. Be careful of the grain. If it starts to break out, go the other way. And the same idea here, we're just going to take all the sharp edges off so this feels nice and comfy in the hand. When we have that done then, we'll sand out these curves and we'll give this a finished sand before we put it in. We're going to put this in using I'll move this out of the way. So we're going to put this in same way. We'll put a few screws and plug them here in the center. But before we do that, because it's going to be hard to sand this, we'll give it a full sand. So this will take a little while. So I'll come back to you when I have it done. I know I showed this before, but great way for sanding curves is just to wrap a piece of towel or an old brush handle in a bit of sandpaper. That allows you to cut that curve. So now, final bit of assembly in this job. So I have my center line marked here, center lines on these, as you can see. These turned out really nice. Full disclosure, you can get it this nice with a chisel and with sandpaper. I've done it before, but I was a bit stuck for time today, so I actually did the inside there with a router. Like I said, the method I was showing there of just paring away and sanding it in give you exactly the same finish. So I'm going to apply glue here, so glue only to the timber on the sides, not to the base. Again, that's why I put in the panel pins. They're a bit flexible and they'll allow it to move. Now all that's left is to cut our plugs, fill this, let it all dry, and give it a sand and a finish. So here we have it, all sanded and looking sweet. All the sharp edges are gone. This just feels and looks brilliant. Now, I was going to apply an exterior wood oil that has a stain in it, but I wasn't really happy with how the colour was coming out. Where else am I going to find a finish that works interior and exterior but won't take away from the beauty of the timber? That's right, it's Danish oil time. So that's this week's video. Thank you as always for staying to the end. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And absolutely do try this at home. Hell, even try a bit of gardening. I am. That's a first.